Hi again and welcome back to Firehammer Videos. So this week we're going to be taking a look at the biggest of the new Age of Sigmar 3rd edition starter sets, Extremis edition. Yep, it's in the frame. Right, so let's crack this open right after this. So let's get into my question this week, and this one's kind of been running around in my head for a while because I've got a series of videos coming up that heavily relied on sort of the result of this question. So with Age of Sigmar 3rd edition, we've seen a kind of soft relaunch of the Stormcast models. So I nearly said Stormcast Marines, and that wasn't an intentional pun. That's how close they are. So we've seen this new soft relaunch, a bit of a redesign, a restyle of the Stormcast models. I suppose my question here is, what do you think is going to happen with the older models? So obviously we started with the Liberators and the Retributors, the big hulking guys, and then we went on to the more roby, flowing people like the Sequitors as we got into 2nd edition. So what do you think is going to happen with those older models? Are they going to get rebuilt in this new format, in this new style, a bit more of a sleeker design? Or are the armies going to continue to have those older models designed as they were, and they'll continue to be a part of your force? So what do you think is going to happen with your likes of your Liberators, your Sequitors, your Retributors, your, I think Paladins are some of them, the big flyy guys with the arrows and stuff like that? What do you think is going to happen with them? Are we going to slowly phase them out, or are we going to Primaris them into a new style? So are we going to see new style Liberators and etc.? So let me know what you think down in the comments. I'll go and stick the box on the desk so we can crack it open. Right then. Oh, well, yeah, it's a heavy box straight up, so I'm going to try and keep the noise to a minimum. I'm just going to go through it and talk to it. So, oh, mine's already got some damage on it. That's a pity. So it's a slightly different box to the others. So it's a bit more corrugated cardy, obviously Dominion, and I'm going to compare this to Dominion a lot because whilst this is the largest of the 3 starter sets, it actually sits in a very weird spot. Forgive the background noise, that's just my dog. I think he's found a spider or a fly. So this sits in a weird spot because it is the largest of the new starter sets. So once Dominion's no longer available, this is going to be the big thing that you flock to. The problem is Dominion exists, and the other comparisons that we're going to get onto in a minute kind of, in summary, make this box immediately reduce in value purely because, in my opinion, it's not much better than the Harbinger starter set. In fact, in some ways it's worse. But then you've also got the other side of the coin where it's not Dominion. So it actually sits in that kind of upper middle echelon of not so great. But let's see. Let's get into it and see what we think about the kit and the content. So let's see what you're going to get in your box. Try and pop this open. I'm a bit limited to space on my desk, so okay, so it does have an internal piece that you pull out. That's good. So it does all sit in a tray and it slides out. Let's pop that to one side. Okay, so it's obviously lots of plastic, as we expect to see in any kind of starter box or anything like that. Go away, little Vindictor. So, you know, lots and lots of plastic. Although personally, I'm used to seeing a sea of plastic in one of these larger boxes. So immediately you've kind of got that big gap there, and you're like, oh, you could have filled this with more plastic. But trust me, we're going to get enough plastic in here anyway. So let's drop this down. So we've got our, let's try and sort them out. So we've got our Orc side, and the Grots are split down. And again, sorry about background noise. I have kids and such. So there you go, you've got your Gut Rippers, your Grots, then we've got here one of your Vindictors and another sprue. So like the, is it Warrior edition, the lower edition, you've got they're split down into a separate piece, so we'll take those apart. On a slightly different plastic, so I don't know if these have been moulded elsewhere. Sometimes they say made by Games Workshop in the UK on them. These do not. There we go, Games Workshop 2021, but it doesn't say where it's made. These, however, say Games Workshop Limited 2021, so I don't know the difference. You can immediately see that there is a colour difference in the sprue. I'm hoping, yeah, that's showing up on camera. This has got a slightly more bluish hue to it with the plastic. So they feel a bit softer, marginally so. Perhaps, you know, it's a different manufacturing process, just, you know, for slightly lesser detailed things. And I say lesser detailed, but, you know, they are still pretty darn good. Obviously, you know, we've got surface detail on the bricks and things like that, but when you get down to the small nature of these sorts of models, you get a lot more detail on there. So that's 1, 2, 3 sprues of scenery, pretty large scenery. Doesn't look to be as modular as previous sets, but hey-ho, that's what it is. I'm going to move these out of the way for a minute and pop them there. Continuing through these, so we've got our Vindictors. Where did I put that other sprue? So we've got our Vindictors, we'll pop them to another side. Then we've got our, oh, we've got another sprue of scenery at the bottom. So before we get on to anything else, there's our additional sprue of scenery. So completely missed that one. And yeah, so there it is. Okay, so, right, moving on. Yep, so Vindictors, your Praetors, yeah, I think I'm right with that one. And then finally your 2 characters here, which is your, not your Knight Arcanum, Lord Imperatant and your Swamp Caller Shaman. So this is your magic user with this set. So this set, plastic wise, is identical to the Harbinger set. Yeah, this is Extremis. So identical to the Harbinger set, with the difference of we get this big chunk of scenery, and this is actually quite weighty. I think, you know, this weighs more than these things together, but not quite as detailed. So I'll look forward to building those. There's some cool bits on there that I'll look forward to putting together. And then moving on, we get our separator, our divider, slightly wonky. I love these. I think they'd look great, you know, if you could frame them. I actually had a look. They're very weird. I think they're, what was it, like 45 centimeters by 28.5 centimeters. I'm guessing. I can't remember the exact dimensions. But I couldn't find a frame with a decent mount that these would go in as standard. I was hoping there was an IKEA frame, but unfortunately these ones, unlike Dominion where you get 2, I've got some damage there, there. So, you know, if only I had some paints or something to cover this with, and then that could look pretty good. But yeah, I think with the amount of stuff in this box, and it's kind of been wedged in more than the others were a bit flush, I think in this box your artwork's going to be a bit more susceptible to damage, if that matters to you. Okay, moving on from there, so we've got our bases. I'm just going to shove them to the side. You'll have the right amount of bases for the models. Some dice, hooray! I have tons of these now, really don't need any more. But it's part of the box. This whole box is to teach you, to get you into and teach you the game. We'll get onto these booklets in a minute because I've got some things to say about them. And then finally, you've got your cardboard. Oh, no, not finally. Oh dear. What's happened? Oh no. Oh no. Right, we'll come on to that in a sec. So you've got your cardboard playing mat. In this cardboard playing mat, it's basically, I believe it's the same size as the other playing mat. It's only 2 sheets. Let me see if I can get that in focus. But you've only got the 2 sheets there. Come on, focus closer to this hand. There we go. No, I don't think I've got autofocus on. But yeah, so you've got 2 sheets which sit side by side, double-sided, and it's just slightly higher quality than the paper ones that you get in the other sets, where they're both identical. So this, obviously, as we know, and we've suspected for a while, but it's quite clearly printed by Panda in China. So I don't know who Panda are, but those are you guys who do a lot of our paperwork for Games Workshop stuff. And there's a lot of rumours flying around that that's one of the reasons why things like Curse City got screwed over, because they couldn't get enough, or they had some kind of altercation with the publishing house, so we couldn't get them. So you get your 2 range rulers. These have been pretty much a staple for a while. They've updated the style of them ever so slightly. They're both Sigmar styled, so we've got the hammers on them and everything. I would have preferred, I mean, you know, I'm just splitting hairs here, but it would have been nice to have like a Cruel Boys faction one and a Stormcast faction one. And on that point, again, one thing I miss about the older sets is they used to do coloured sprues. How much that affected cost or anything like that, I don't know, but you used to get, you know, in your starter sets at least, one faction would be in a general colour of their faction, like the Stormcast would be gold, and I know for Soul Wars there was like an aqua teal colour for the Ghosty Boys, so, and girls, and so yeah, so you don't get that anymore with any of the starter sets. It's just grey plastic. So how much that helped or impacted somebody, I don't really know. Right, oh no, what's this from? What is this from? So this is the first time I've opened this box. I have a feeling, so something with a long handle, that could be any of the, I believe that's going to be one of the Vindictors. So let's have a quick hunt through. So my Lord Imperitant's fine because his two weapons, or his one weapon, I don't know what that does, I just paint them, so not really too fussed. Have we got anything missed? There he is. So straight away there on the second sprue, part number 24. So there we go. What do I do now? Well, if I'd bought this from Games Workshop, which I hadn't, I'd just ring them and say, hey, I bought this and it snapped. What do I do? And they would normally send me a replacement sprue. So I might try doing that, but I really don't want any more Vindictors. I've you know, reviewed Dominion and this now. So, you know, that's enough of them. Not that I won't want them and they're not cool, it's just that, well, I don't play the game and there's only so many times you can paint the same model. As I say, hopefully, you know, you get enough of these arms and enough variation in this set that the likelihood is I can either convert something else onto that or I might have another arm option or arm choice. But, you know, it's not the worst. It's a fairly clean break. So a bit of glue and, you know, by the time it's on the model, you're not going to see that anyway. So up to you what you want to do with it. If you buy them from GW or one of their partners, any kind of hobby store, I would take that back and say, look, I'm not happy with that. If they've got one in stock, they'll probably just swap the whole box or swap you the sprue out of another box. Games Workshop themselves, I've had it in the past where they've gone, oh no, and then without having to send anything back or do anything, they just send you a replacement sprue. I'm not saying that's what they do all the time, I'm saying that's what's happened to me before, which has been an absolutely fantastic customer service experience, because let's be honest, we are paying £100 and odd for these boxes, and that probably, or this sprue probably cost them pence to make, although not to design and develop. Right, let's get into the final thing then. So I'm just pretty much going to say the same. You know, if Games Workshop are going to go through the effort of copying the starter boxes and just slightly amending them for the different audiences, then why can't I do the same for my video reviews? So I'm going to do exactly the same and say the same things, just in ever so slightly different ways, which actually is potentially more effort than they're putting in. Right, so here we go. Oh, let's get comfortable. So moving on to these. So your War Scroll cards, really good, nice little quick references on the model's stats and abilities, good explanation of the model and that sort of thing. I absolutely love these, and as I've said in the previous videos, it would be great if you got these with every unit that you bought, so at least then as you're building your army, you are collecting these, mainly because they've got gorgeous artwork on one side, but if you had a little binder you could flick through referring to all your models and just go through this as you play in a game, I would find that useful. However, as they don't do that, and these only come in the starter boxes, once you grow beyond these units in the box, and once you get up to getting the actual war tome and the codices, these become redundant. So they're nice, pretty artwork, but not needed beyond the initial game. Core rules, nice little reference guide. This is the core rules. Like, you'll find this as we went through the Dominion book. Unlike the now years old 40k, which is on 9th edition, this is on 3rd edition, so the rules themselves are all contained pretty much within here. Now, as I say, I don't play the game, but Rob does. Rob did the review from the website, went through this and went, yep, that's pretty much all you need to play the game in its entirety, so just keep hold of that and you are golden, and that's everything you need. We'll get onto this last. The build guide. So, oh yeah, sorry, you get 2 rules reference cards. So once you've had a quick gander through the guide and know how to play the game, each of you, when you want to play the game, get a rules reference each, so you can just do a quick refer back to the rules, showing you the phases, what you do, and things like that. So there's 2 of those in there so that you can play the game nice, quick, and easily. Okay, let's have a look through the build guide. I've already built these, as I say. I can just reach over. I mean, that's a bad example because that's not in any of these sets. But these guys, for example, are all here mid-painted. Once again, I am following Marco Frizzoni's paint guide on these. So if you want to check that out, check him out on YouTube. He is absolutely fantastic, knows colour theory to a T. I'm incredibly jealous of his painting style and approach, but I'm just following this as a quick painting style. So I've built all these, apart from the scenery, but we're not going to have too much trouble with that because it's some of the most basic stuff you can build. But I'd like to see how this book approaches the build guide for some of the units. So Lord Imperaton, really straightforward. There's no customization options on him, just build him as he comes. I suppose the only option is you can put that little bit of grass on his base or not, your call. The Praetors, one of them can be built as a Praetor Prime. Does it say that in here? You've got the 2 options of the head. Is this the Praetor? Yeah, so it has you build 1 Praetor, then another Praetor. Hang on, 2. I'm so confused here with the numbering. 2B, then 2A, then 2C. It's crazy sometimes how they put these books together, but obviously they've got a guide for the models and how many squares and how much space it takes up. And one thing I do like that they do is they clearly try to keep a consistent size. I mean, it's not to scale, is it? Not compared it. Where's that Praetor? Have I got one in here? You're not a Praetor. Have I got one? Have I got one lying round? Yes, I have. Right, so you, there. So it's not to scale. No, not quite. Probably about half scale. So, but what they do is they can, well, yeah, laugh along. So laugh in the comments. Right, what they do is they have a consistent size throughout for the model, so you won't generally see them go big, small, you know, that is fairly much the same size as that, and then these smaller components, it's nice how they do it. So that limits the space that they can have in here, and what they'll do is they'll do one guide and then somebody will put the box set together and go, that's what we're doing. So this is why there's a couple of things with these build guides, they never add up. I mean, the sprues themselves are meant to be built in the order of the parts, so you'll see these numbers on the sprues like 1, 2, 3, 4, and if you actually cut them off the sprue in that order to a certain point, then you will have all the parts for one model, so they're generally in the same order. So 1 to 7, for example, would be for a specific Praetor or Vindictor. However, it doesn't always cleanly work that way in the book, because, you know, they could start with part 47. It never clearly starts parts 1, 2, 3, 4. So here, the second model you build is actually 1, 2, 3 and 4 are your options, 5, 6 and 7. So 1 to 7 are all that Praetor. And then finally, it has you build the Praetor Prime or just a normal Praetor. I can't remember what I built in mine. I think mine was that's the Prime, isn't it? Yeah, because he's pulling his sword out of his little scabbard or knife, sword knife, whatever it is. So that's your option with your Praetors that you've got there. Let me move on. Brush trying to get in the shot. It's an old brush, that's not one of my best brushes. And then again, so with the Vindictors, you can actually build 2 Vindictor Primes. You can build a, always scared to touch this topic these days, but you can build the guy with the male style face or the female style body and face, sorry, both body and face. But they are different poses, so you can't use that body with that. Well, you can, I suppose, if you want to do chopping and changing, but that body can become that Vindictor Prime, that body can become that Vindictor Prime, or they can both become standard Vindictors. So it's up to you which way you want to go with it. With Dominion, it didn't explain really any of this, how many you should have per unit. So I ended up, out of the 10 Vindictors that you build, I ended up building 2 Vindictor Primes. It didn't quite work, but whatever. The only really shared component between the 2 of them, I believe, is the shield. So the shield's got, you can't see it on here, but the shield for the Prime has like a swirly Sigmar-y thing, whereas the rest of them are a bit more standard. So the shield is B7, and then I think B38 and B9. Yeah, so the only part that they share is the shield itself, but that matters little really. And then yeah, so of these two models, here's the 4 you can build. So with this model you can build that one or that one, with this model you can build that one or that one, and that's 2 of your units. So one will be a prime normal, one will be a normal Vindictor, and then the next guy you can build here as either a shield bearer, banner bearer, sorry, Azurite signifier. Okay, fair enough, standard bearer is what I call them, or you can just build him as a normal Vindictor, and again, he also comes with, as all of them do, apart from the, oh no, including the primes, they all have the option of the helmeted or non-helmeted variant, although looking at the size of some of these heads, how they fit in those helmets, does worry me. Okay, then moving on, so you've got these. If you want to build the default squad, just follow the general approach until you've got these guys, but I suppose there's nothing really stopping you or nothing explaining to you that you could end up building halfway through the blue guy, halfway through the purple guy, and then realizing that, oh, hang on a minute, that shield's not working, and then you end up like I did with 2 primes. Thankfully in Dominion that worked out okay because you get the 2 prime shields, but you know, try and avoid it. Just try and build these if you want a standard normals. So sorry, once again, immature YouTuber and my camera cut out, so now I'm having to dive through some bits again. I think I got as far as these guys, so I'll go on to the Swamp Crawler Shaman. Very basic build. There's a bit I struggled with around the head. I tried to gap fill it where his robes are, just it wouldn't push together quite as well as I'd like it to. Same with a lot of these models, make sure you probably want to trim down some of the pins and just shave down the edges. They don't fit as nicely or as cleanly as the Indomitus models, but no options there. Fairly straightforward. Onto the Gut Rippers, again, nice straightforward build. I would once again recommend trimming the pins for them so that they fit in. No, there's 10 models, there's no changes, all the models are built as shown, apart from the last one or the first one if you follow it numerically, which would make sense, hey-o. But yeah, you can build him either as a Gut Ripper boss or as one of the normal Gut Rippers if this is your second box, as I've recommended, especially with the Harbinger and Extremis. This goes perfectly with the Warrior Edition if you want to quickly bolster these forces for a lower amount, because you get the opposite models. Instead of getting the Swamp Crawler Shaman and Lord Imperator, you get the Knight Arcanum and the Killer Boss, which is this one and this one respectively, along with 10 more Gut Rippers and 5 more Vindictors. So that would be a good place to go from here, as I've mentioned in the previous videos. So yeah, the last guy can be built differently. Right, the Hobgraphs. These guys are weird, as I've said throughout. My thoughts on these are they're really interesting. They're an incredibly well sculpted sprue. You get a lot of cool options with them, and whoever designed these, absolutely fantastic, but unfortunately they just don't get the love they deserve because they're essentially cannon fodder, a lot like a lot of the smaller units where there's a lot of them. And in this box you get 10 in, which is obviously the same as the Gut Rippers, but they're smaller, more fiddly units. The cool thing about them, however, unlike the previous ones, so things like the Gut Rippers, where you do get options, it's normally the head and the arm and basically the weapon loadout, and the same with the Vindictors. You know, you get the options of different heads, and sometimes there's a weapon change on the different units. The bodies are the same. These are the opposite. The heads are actually different, but the bodies change. The heads you do get options with, sorry, let me say that again. With all the models mostly, you get the option of 2 heads, once again helmeted and non-helmeted. But this time it's the bodies that change amongst the different models, not the actual loadout. So what you'll find from a lot of these is, apart from these 3 here, which are the same, when we get into the different ones here, you've actually got here for 2 different models, 2 completely different, for 4 different models, this blue one here. So you've got H4 or H2, and it's this slight armor plate here, H1, that changes, and then the optional head. So you've got the option of building one totem bearer or standard bearer, or you can build either of them just as normal Hobgraphs if you wish. And then the same with the noisemakers, but you've got two different ones. You've got this hornblower and you've got this drummer boy, or you can get the guy with the, I guess is that a grenade? I don't know, I obviously don't play Age of Sigmar, but some kind of throwy thing and a knife, or this dual wieldy knife guy, or the drummer. And once again, it's the armor plate or the front plate that's the same, so H37, 37 there is part of H38 and 40 there. So it's a very, it can start to get quite complex how these guys go together, but there are, I think if you look at it, I mean, forgetting the heads, so you've got 3 there, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, you've got 14 different, significantly different kind of models, sculpts and poses throughout these. The final guy, the Hobgraph boss, can be built as 2 styles of boss. You can have Captain Hook or your dual wielder guy, or just a normal Hobgraph with 3 choices of head there. The heads don't, I mean they can with a little bit of sculpting, don't really swap between the units too easily, because they are placed different on the different units with different pin sizes, and you even get like guide pins on some of them. So that's it. All in all, a decent build guide for the models. You won't have too much trouble with them. They do all pin, but as I've said before, and I'll continue to say, it is a shame that these have taken a step back when it comes to the actual building of the units, when it comes to push fit, having to go down and shave again. Because I remember the guys from Indomitus, which I've still got here, you know, you can just push fit them. In fact, that's not an Indomitus guy, he's just one of the guys I've done alongside them. This is one of the Indomitus models that I've converted, and even now you can really simply just wiggle the arm off, or both arms, which helps you to paint them in sub-assemblies if you so wish, and also customize the loadout a lot easier when you're doing things like that. So that's one thing. Is a bit of a shame that you've now got to go back and start doing shaving again, but hey. And as for the scenery, well, it looks nice. I mean, the build guide's straightforward. Obviously for this you do 4 of these, 4 quarters of that, and that on top, and then the swirly thing. Really, really nice, attractive centerpiece there for your model. And then you've got a couple of these broken wally bits. Another decent sort of centerpiece, which it looks like you've got an optional head. So yep, they definitely want you building a couple of these, or at the very least buying a couple of these, almost like the guys off I forget where they enter in Lord of the Rings, but the 2 statues. And then you've got the walls, which, looking at these, this is kind of standard, like these edges, so it does look like these are potentially somewhat modular and are perhaps cross compatible with the older wall style pieces, but I would really need to practice with that in order to confirm. And it's not some bits I've got lying around to really do it. I don't think the styles are really going to match up too directly. But yeah, it doesn't look like this is so incredibly modular. I mean, you've got these edges here. I suppose you can put that edge on there and it wouldn't look too bad, but you've got to have the height of these posts meeting up, which it doesn't look like they do, because that looks lower than that. So hopefully there's more of these. I don't know, there might be another set to go along with these. I haven't looked at the larger scenery style pieces, and there's a reason for that, which I'll get onto in here. And it was actually Rob, who plays the game, that explained this to me. So just to go through the book, and again, I am literally copying what I've done in the previous articles. So you get a nice opening, almost cinematic in the way of opening, with some great artwork and some brief explanation and things like that. Then you've got story, fluff story, lots and lots of story, how the game works. Hey, there's Warhammer World. How the game works and things like that. So and then it's basically going through and explaining the whole collect, build, paint, play, whilst giving you an overview of the mortal realms and things like that. So very, very straightforward book. There's not really much you can put in here. As I say, Sigmar's on 3rd edition, and equivalent in one of the 40k editions is that would be rules wall to wall. Forgive me, I've just had somebody enter my house with a young child, so I'll let my wife deal with that while I continue talking to you. So yeah, a quick overview of the models that you get in the box. Some nice pictures, explanation of the crawl bores, and again, all the individual models, nice detailed breakdown of these guys, who they are, nice preview sort of artwork on how big you can build this force and things like that, add some more orcs in. There's the whole Warhammer Dominion box contents, so that looks really nice. And there we go. So literally this back end of the book is the start playing. So you've got all that, and then it's this small section about playing the game. So it'll introduce you to the game, very, very standard things that it's going to go through, explains the board. You've got the double-sided board that you can place down, and then it gives you 5 battle plans. These battle plans are identical to the previous edition, so they are 100% identical to what you get in the Harbinger edition, and they are 95% identical to what you get in Warrior. So it basically, each one teaches you the very simple basics of how to move and how to charge and things like that. If you wish to charge, why it doesn't explain, I don't think, why you would want to charge versus why you wouldn't want to charge. So there you go. Movement, essentially, movement and attacking is the first one. High ground, right. So here's the odd thing, and I hope I explained this right. So in the earlier editions, let me just grab this box. So, and again, Rob's reviewed these online and he hates these. So this is what you get with your smaller editions. You get this little piece of cardboard terrain, and Rob says, oh, it's cheap and horrible. Well, it is cheap and horrible, but at least it gives you something, you know, and it repurposes the box. And, you know, it's better to have a functional piece of cardboard than more of a blight on the environment. So that's my view. Rob's differs, whatever. We don't all have to like the same thing. I like that it's included and that it exists, basically. But the thing is, this whole high ground, it explains to you how the actual models work and how they have advantages on higher ground. And then this picture here doesn't fully explain it. This is how it would get you set up. The problem that Rob explained to me is that the Gut Rippers have a 2-inch range, so with their stabby swords, and when they're on higher ground they have a +1 to their save. So that means that they, being on higher ground, it shows you the advantage of being higher up, because you are less likely to get hurt, and if you're more of a ranged model, then that, you know, you can keep your range, but obviously the ranged models are generally more well, just easier to take out once you do get up close, because they're a bit weaker in the armor side of things. But the problem with this scenery is there's no, unlike the box, so the box is 2 inches high, and unlike the box, because of the height, you can't actually attack, you can't do anything. So this is the problem with this. So on the box you can stand on that cardboard box and basically stab down at your opposing force. Whereas in this, they've kind of bunged this scenery in, but it doesn't really give you that function. And the ways he's sort of told me is that when you kind of get into using this particular scenery, you're not really standing up on top of anything, because this is 3 inches tall with nothing to stand on, or at least not for any more than 1 or 2 models. So basically you're doing like a Harry Hill chase, you know, as one force chases you around this way, you're legging it round this way, and you don't actually get to use the scenery. So long and short of it is that the included scenery in the Extremis edition is actually less functional and less useful to you than the cheap cardboard box that you get in this edition, at least for the scenarios they provide you in this book. But again, moving on from there, you've got aim and fire, so you've got some distance ones in there. And then you've got your magic. So this is the only one which slightly differs. So in the Harbinger and Extremis edition, you've got the Swamp Caller Shaman as your magic guy, whereas in the Warrior edition, it's your Knight Arcanum as your magic wielder. So it basically teaches you the magic stage of the game. And then your 5th battle plan is basically get to this objective in the middle and put your armies either side. So this is everything you've learned, apply it here, and that's identical in both editions, in both Harbinger and Extremis. And again, it's also identical in the Warrior edition. You've just got a smaller force. So this is take all your stuff, apply everything you've learned, which is generally a game of 40k, fair enough. But what they really could have done with is a few more pages, and they do a better job of this in Mortal Realms of all things, which is, you know, a small weekly magazine. But for every loadout, for every, you know, you've got quite a few units in here, give us some more ideas, you know, just come up with, we are beginners here, so basically we're left playing this now for eternity, and the only options are moving some scenery around, some generally for this set with no real ranged units, useless scenery. You know, it looks nice, and you'll certainly have a better, more appealing visually game of Warhammer Age of Sigmar. But again, it's kind of pointless. So what you want to do here is, you know, you might want to, Games Workshop, this is a call to you, just give us 5 more scenarios. Pit 2 of these against 1 of these or something like that. Give us 3 or 4 more scenarios just for the sake of it, just to add interest, because those of us who've never played the game before, I'm looking at this thinking, right, you've given me 5 scenarios, you definitely could have given me more, a few more written words in there, a few extra pages, maybe a few fewer pictures, and we'd have been happy. But by the way, if you haven't checked this out, by Maxime Pinard, was the 2019 the last Slayer, the last Golden Demon Slayer sword winner. That's an absolutely incredible model, and the paint job is just to die for. So check that out. But yeah, come on, Games Workshop. Next edition, I want to see more from you. I want to see you set us up and go, right, so you're learning Age of Sigmar. Let's set up some scenarios, and then a page maybe explaining. Don't go straight into quick reference and things like that. You know, say, right, well, from here you can do this, you can do that. And I appreciate I haven't read it, but Rob has, and the general view is, here's 5 scenarios, you've learned everything, now battle, and battle until your heart's content. Go and figure out the rest on your own. Go and buy some more models, go and buy some other stuff. And yeah, the next thing you can do is buy another copy of Warrior Edition, just to boost your forces and make them a bit larger. But yeah, I can't stress that point enough, that leaving us hanging on, right, now try everything with some scenery that's actually less useful in this edition than the boxes that you got in the smaller editions. I just don't think it's enough. I think they could have done a lot more around that. So that's it. That's what I think of Warhammer Age of Sigmar Extremis edition. Personally, and I know I asked this on the other one, I think the sweet spot is definitely Harbinger. I quite like Warrior, so I think, you know, and when you get Extremis, you're paying extra. All you're getting is the scenery, and all it's useful for within this, in my opinion, is the style, to look better on your board. That's purely it, just to make your board look a bit more appealing. Honestly, take it or leave it. I like scenery, I think it's good. People tend to get bored painting scenery, but you know, a couple of decent dry brushes and you've got it painted and it can look quite good. So I like the scenery. I'm glad I got the edition with the scenery. I just think that for somebody playing the game, this could have been better. So at the very least, if you're going to get one of these editions, know that the only difference is you get the scenery in this one and a slightly more attractive battle board, which does help. The hard cardboard battle board does help, because the amount of times I've put models on that paper sheet, and because the folds just stay in it, they fall over and topple, is a nightmare. So the foam, the cardboard playing mat is good, but the extra money is purely for the additional scenery. So definitely get that if you can afford it and you want the scenery. You can always add more scenery later. It just won't help or really hinder you. Well, it will hinder you in regard to where the placement is. You'll have to go around it, but it's not really going to affect play too much in this set. And then if you're going to get that, your next steps really are going to be just get a copy of Warrior Edition if you haven't already. Definitely do that, just to increase your forces. And then from there, well, there's an absolute slew of new Stormcast and Cruel Boys models coming out. Who doesn't want dragons? We all want dragons. That's why they brought back dragons. So that's it, guys. Let me know what you think about the Extremis Edition in the comments. If you've picked one up, are you happy with your purchase? Are you feeling a little underwhelmed by it? Do you agree? Do you disagree? Don't forget to check out the written review on fohammer.com. But that's it for now, because I've got another video to record. So see you next time. Fohammer out.